start again.
There we go. I was saying, sorry, we got cut out and then power cut out. I remember where I was. I was just saying that, you know, you've so openly shared your experiences over the last year and couple of years. And I always say to students, you know, what goes on your mat and what goes on off your mat, it always has this element of synchronicity. And so use the opportunity when you get on the mat just to connect with what's going on. You know, park it aside while you're on the mat, but just connect with it and have some awareness of it. And that's basically, you know, what I was saying. And I'm super, super humbled that I was able to offer that connection back to you. Just shows that things kind of have this way of going full circle. So, you know, you imparted that knowledge on me and it stayed with me all these years. I still even embody some of your cues in my classes, even till today. One of them I remember quite clearly, and I used it just this morning, is hips forwards like car headlights. I just remember you always used to say that, hips forwards like car headlights. And now I just can't leave it because I'm like, it just makes so much sense. You know, when I say that, everybody just connects with it. I'm like, yep, that's Lisa. She was simple, but so effectively like able to help us remember things. So yeah, so thank you as well for being an awesome, awesome teacher all those years ago.
That's amazing. Yeah, I am a stickler for, you know, those hips and shoulder alignments. You know, my students will still go like, yeah. I mean, yeah, that some words, you know, it's our job to teach, and it's our job to teach safely, you know, and that was one of my things when I started teacher training, which, you know, was never, well, I said before, it was never my intention. My yoga teacher he invited me and encouraged me to teach yoga. I was like, I don't want to do that. That's like, you know, it's crazy. But then when you do start teaching, you know, for me, it was like, I then thought, oh my God, I'm actually responsible for these people in the room, and they're telling me things about their bodies, and like, I am, you know, like, I don't know this stuff. So that's then you think, now I really have to learn. Now I have to learn a lot more about anatomy and physiology. That was all in the British School of Yoga teaching, and it's very thorough, very, very thorough. But, you know, I'm not an osteopath. So, you know, then it is a thing of like, oh, befriend some osteopaths. Just
have coffee and chat about, you know, shoulders and hips.
And do more with the anatomy side. You know, learn more and more and more about anatomy, definitely. But then for me, it was almost like, but I thought, but I don't want to get caught into like fascia. I'm so not interested in it. And someone once said to me, who's a teacher, and I was actually employing him as well at the time when he said this to me. He said, oh, you're such a rubbish teacher, Lisa. You're so like, you know, you're anatomically not correct. You're then, you know, it was really going into one about the detail. And I was going, I don't care about fascia joints. I know what they are and I know what they do. But I said, if I talk to my students about the minuscule of their knee, they're gonna get bored. And he said, you just talk about, you know, you talk about, it's like fairyland with you. It's all like the gods and the goddesses and everything. I said, but that is still part of what it is that we're teaching, is it? It's still like, you don't have to believe it, but I said, but sometimes you need more. You need that sparkle. You need that. You need a
bit of a story to be told.
Yeah, and I think it's really important. And the Hindu stories, they're great. They're stories. You know, they're stories. They're just as important as the Roman gods and goddesses. They're just as important as our British ones. You know, but the British ones aren't that exciting really, because they're not colourful. You know, we come from a dark, dank place of, you know.
It's really interesting for me, because I'm in this space and with what I teach, I'm very much in this space where it's about the evolution of the yoga practice, you know, and I look at how modern lifestyle has taken over people's bodies with technology, sedentary lifestyles and sitting and all of this stuff. And whilst people are still active, I'm very much of this lens where I feel people are losing that connection with the biomechanics and how the body is so incredibly designed to help you move, you know. And what I tend to do, and I totally agree with you, if I was to, and you know, my teacher training with my yoga teacher trainer, she's a physical therapist. All of that. But what we do is there's still a choreography. There's still a really smart sequencing method, and every class has a theme. Every class tells not just about what's going on in the shoulder. It's, I always say to people, you know, when you've got shoulder issues, neck issues, jaw issues, I compare it to that phrase where we say to people, you know, and there are so many creative ways to break this stuff down.
Yeah.
In a 60-minute or 45, I've appreciated more and more that it is the teacher's personality that comes into this class.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not, that is what students will connect with. It's not, anybody can learn yoga. You could do it off a YouTube channel these days, but it's about the teacher. And Lisa, who was my first and probably in person, but in my mind, I used it and I completely just embodied it until I found a teacher training that I wanted to connect with again. And that was very much because I was an athlete and I just kept having recurring injuries that wouldn't go away. And that's what drove me towards this dimension of teaching. It wasn't because I wasn't interested in the philosophy or the art behind it all or the history of any of that. I've started to read the Bhagavad Gita, actually, a translated one, but I want to know. I mean, I come from a Hindu culture, but we've only been taught the diluted versions. And now to be able to put all those amazing stories into what I teach, but even from this lens of a modern evolution, is really just amazing, you know, because again, it's an art of being able to tell a story every time you get on a mat or every time you're in a class with students who want to get on that. Because it's not just about right arm up, left leg forwards, let's take a triangle, let's do this. It's got like some kind of a, totally agree that it's just got to be some fun to it. There's got to be something a little bit more. So I'm totally with you there. Even though my approach is, you know, getting them into more of a, what I call equity relationship with gravity, there's still very much art and fun that we have on the mat. So
excellent.
I loved your teaching, Donna.
No, it's really lovely. You kind of breaking up a lot in this, but you know what? I just think you're in a different country. It's the fact that we're having this connection is the beauty. The beauty is in that alone. So I just want to kind of wrap up our time together in this, but I'm sure we're going to start speaking together regularly. I hope we are anyway.
I hope so. That'd be awesome.
But the word evolution, you mentioned that, and I'm of a mindset at the moment to I've kind of moving away from. In January, I will do intention setting workshops with people, with my students, and goal setting, and explain the importance of living with purposeful intention and being aligned to your goals, and how that underpins your kind of, that creates your foundation, if you like, for how you want to live and go forward. So as opposed to sort of saying, oh, I want to buy a new car in July, but you could still say that and go like, okay, how are you going to do that? Well, I'm going to have to save some money. This is how I'm going to do that bit, or I'm going to arrange these other things, and I've got my other car to get rid of, and how am I going to do that? And so you kind of have these, there's always a plan, if you like.
Yeah.
So I've kind of decided this year not to do this, but to focus more on something that has more meaning to me, is the evolution of goals and living with them. So rather than having a checklist, we keep, it's like a business plan, I guess. You kind of, it's always there, it's always, you're rewriting it, you're drawing it, you're constantly creating it, but you need to know what it is that you're creating and why you're creating it. And then also understanding how it feels, so you make that almost visceral connection. And if it doesn't, if it feels right, and if it feels wrong, and you change accordingly. So there's this constant adjustment, which we're having to learn to do in this era of COVID. If anything, that it's taught us all is to
stay adaptable,
adjust, constantly adjust. So I wondered if you could just give us a little synopsis of your evolutionary journey of evolution to becoming a yoga teacher, maybe just in recent years, and just so that it reminds us that it doesn't just happen. It doesn't just go like, oh yeah, I'm a yoga teacher. Like there's so much behind that is then, in you, and you're the person at the front of the class, and you're the person with the authority in that moment. So I just wondered if you might share a bit of that.
Of course. I'll tell you how long it took me to make a decision. I'm of that belief that at the age of about 18 or 19, and I think that's initially what drew me to a yoga class. I knew nothing about yoga at the time, but then I met you, Lisa, and I thought, yeah, I'm in the right place. I'm learning the right things. I'm being given these tools at that time, I was going through some really hard times. I just left Kenya for this first time. I was trying to adapt to this massive culture shock at university. I was I chose to do law at the time, but I wanted to do sports medicine. I knew that I wanted to do sports medicine, and I didn't have the courage. And so, parents being parents, they wanted the best for me. They said, you're going to make a great lawyer someday. That's kind of what you need to study. And that's what I did. And I fell into this massive hole of unhappiness. I hate using the word depression because I think it's so labeling. We talked about labeling earlier. And I just couldn't connect with myself. I didn't know where I was, didn't know what I was doing, really had to dig deep. And I've always been a sportswoman, so I ended up just basically picking up my hockey stick at uni and thinking, you've got to get out there, you've got to shake it off, and you've just got to keep going. And that's what I did, and that's also what drew me to your classes. And essentially at that time, it healed me. It helped me discover who I really was. And every time I got on the mat, it was almost like I went into this different world of just me, myself, my core. We talked about the bandhas, we talked about all of that, but on a physical level, yeah, I was connecting with bandhas, but on a much more metaphysical level, I realized I was building the foundations of what I now understand are my core beliefs. And that is what helped me transform over these last 15 to 20 years. I took a career change after 8 years of being a corporate lawyer in London. I moved countries, came back home. I got married. I got divorced. I went into working as an entrepreneur. I went into working in our family business. We lost the family business. And then I was all of a sudden presented with this beautiful white canvas. And I thought, what are you going to do different? What have you been gifted in these 20 years that you can take from and leave behind what you don't want? And I went straight back to when I was 18 and I thought, you know what? I always knew that I wanted to do something to help people understand that the body is a massive gift. It's self-healing. It's something you cannot do without. Whatever aspirations you have, we're talking about evolutionary goals. And I say to people, you need your mind, you need your body, you need your spirit connected in order to keep thinking about these goals, to keep, evolving these goals, to keep working through them. We talked about you at the age of 20 thinking, oh, I don't know if I want to be a yoga teacher, to now being 50 and all of a sudden being like emancipated. The one thing you've probably had is that connection with yourself and your true core beliefs. And I say to people, that is what this gives people. It's not just, there's a whole culture of it needs to look like this and it looks fancy and people doing all these fun things. That is just one element. But what this can give people, I think, in today's world especially, is that connection of your body is your God-given vehicle. It can get you anywhere. And I say to people, in my branding and when I think about my business, I want people to understand that there are infinite possibilities within themselves, but for them, out there, and even on your mat. And that's what drew me initially. It was a combination of an incredible teacher. It was me being able to heal every time I got on the mat. And it was what brought me closer and closer. Even till today, there's still so many things I learned about myself, is who I truly am. And that then makes everything else possible. And that is why I teach it. This is why I do it. This is why I help people. The whole aspect of it is obviously to help people understand and get away from injuries. That's a really big part of how I teach and what I teach. And in modern day evolution, that's posturally sort of driven, because I see people sitting all the time and picking up bad habits in the body. But ultimately, the goal as to why I teach is to basically discover and help people discover possibilities.
Wow. Wow. That's so beautifully put. Really, really beautifully put. And the reason why you can say all that and articulate it, especially some of the things that are difficult, is because you are grounded in yourself. Yeah. You are the living proof of who you are, which is beautiful.
Yeah, and you said something. It's not something that will come overnight. It's not. It's taken me 20 years to make. I mean, I started my teacher training 2 years ago, but let's say 15 years to make and grow this courage to say, okay.
And to get to that place, to get to that place to make the informed decision that you are, and therefore you are, you have an authenticity. And again, just kind of thinking about, the more superficial world of yoga, the yoga business, if you like, the industry of yoga, and that's that side of it. It's easy not to be involved with it, because it's just because you see it for what it is. And in many ways, when people ask me about the sort of Instagram culture of yoga. And I go, well, the thing is, and even if someone's just turned up and they said, I want to be a yoga teacher, and they haven't really got much experience of it, which is surprising how many people do that. Because I think, we make it look really easy and really fun.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, you have to write the class.
But it's really not that. It's not that. And then and I say, you know what? It doesn't really matter. If it gets people on their yoga mat, they will start to learn there is more to this than a flying, whatever it is, the latest, the flying lotus thing, the new names of poses that people have branded. That's a word in itself, really, isn't it? It's become their brand, and the different names of yoga postures, what they're now called, and I go, oh, well, we used to call this pigeon, but now people call it swan.
Yeah.
Just, I don't want to have any, show disrespect to the lineage of these things, but I have a big thing about namaste. So, this was so lovely, and I kind of have to add this in now because it's the end of this of our conversation for now, and it will tie in with this. So, like everywhere you go, everywhere, and it's at the end of the class, the teachers.
Yeah.
So I was teaching this group of kids, and I just think this is so lovely. So I had this group of small children in primary school. They were like 10 and 11. They were really smart. They're really, really smart kids. And there was a girl in there who had severe autism, and she came with her friend, and they reminded me so much of me and someone who was like my absolute best friend, who died very suddenly a couple of years ago. She was like my forever friend. We were joined at the hip, and throughout our lives we were like best mates. And my friend Leslie grew up to be the most beautiful girl in the village. But when we were at school, she was this scrawny little, super painfully shy person. She was kind of like this. And I come from a family of like total, like egotist, huge, big personalities. So we were like, I was in this family of the big family in the village. So I couldn't hide behind anything. Everybody knew my whole family, so I just was brought up to think, you have to just walk in a room and own the heritage, really. You can't hide.
Wherever you go, you just got to be seen.
Yeah, so these two girls reminded me so much of my of me and my lovely friend Leslie. And so that the other friend was like protecting her super shy child who sees the world and feels the world in a different way. So at the end of the class, one of the girls said, Miss, what does namaste mean? So again, I just think culturally, this is not my culture. So I know things, but I don't know things. But so I asked this girl who was Asian. I said, oh, does anybody in the class know what the word namaste means? And this girl went, means hello. And I said, yeah. I said, I thought that too. That's what my understanding of it. I said, but I once heard someone in a class, and it was a group that I was teaching in a voluntary situation with in a charity, and there was a key worker of the kids who was in the class, and at the end of the class, I always end my classes in the same way. And Hansga, thank you for coming, and just smile. I would say to people, just smile. It's what I've always said, because as a teacher, at the end of the class, everybody looks really miserable. They come up and they sit and they go like,
and so serious.
And I can just smile. So I always say that. So I did my bit of just smiling. Then this other woman who I didn't know at all, she said, oh, have you, perhaps you might like to say, she said this to the group, it wasn't her class, she was in the class, she went, and she's English girl as well, so again, I just think, we should, stick, it's a bit of a tricky one. She went, we should say namaste. And I thought, isn't that hello? Why are we saying that at the end of a class? And she said, and she said to the group, and I said this to the group and to this group of kids, and I'm saying it to you. And she said, it means, what did she say? Something along the lines of, I see the God within you. I thought, that's a really beautiful thing to say, but I'm not too sure about that. But so I said this to the group of young children who were 11. I said, I've heard it said that it means, if we see the God within you. And she went, no, it just means hello. It was
right.
Yeah, so really, and then people say to me as well, at the end of the class, they go, namaste. I'm not going to go into one about this, but it's a bit of a how, and the thing is, language and things change and evolve, and they do that, and it's this, and this word namaste has now become something else, and it's this wave of change, and it's not for me to say.
And so commercial. Everywhere you go, you get, oh, namaste, and I'm like,
yeah.
Use it when it's right, and use it because you understand the meaning. It's not just some fancy thing that you do, even like just putting your hands together or whatever. Just
So I kind of feel like
I say to people all the time, and I think in this phase of where I'm learning so much, I am so of the opinion that unless I understand the why of something and it's crystal clear in my head and I can apply it to real life examples, I'm in no position to divulge. Otherwise, it's just me regurgitating something that I've been told.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. Even if somebody taught me a pose and they said it's this benefit and that benefit and blah, 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 if it doesn't feel good and from an anatomical perspective, it doesn't do me any good, I will research it. And if it doesn't agree with what I'm trying to achieve, I just won't teach it.
Yeah.
Simple,
Yeah.
And I think that's a great way to just explain curiosity and tell people your learning and openness to this practice also can evolve.
And go deeper. So this brings us to a beautiful ending.
And then be like, oh yeah, that's what I was told. Be curious.
Yeah, that's what I was told. Like, well, did you not question that? Yeah, someone told me about someone who's a teacher, sort of said a teacher in education. I was telling her about the problems that my son was experiencing with teaching because he challenges all authority. I can't think where he gets that from at all. But and she went, oh my God, they'll hate him. No one likes an independent thinker in the class.
Yeah,
like, really?
This is me. This is exactly.
That's like not being an independent thinker.
I disrespect the teacher. I'm actually just curious. I'm curious, and a good teacher will feed that curiosity always.
Yeah, and that's what I think it brings. But Anasa doesn't. I mean, she wasn't saying it about herself. She said, "Oh no, I would love it." But the thing is, there is a time in the class to sort of to have that independent thinker that's going to take you down the rabbit hole, really, isn't it? But the beauty of what we do is, and I would say this when I taught in secondary schools, that I'd say to them, "What do you want to do?" And I go like, remember, this is not. We don't have a curriculum. You don't have. You've chosen to be here, but what is it that you'd like to do? Because there's no point me teaching you things you already know how to do. We're here to go a bit deeper into that. So it's always interesting. So in the correct phrase saying of namaste, and I say to people, there is no word for goodbye. That's the thing that's why we only say hello.
Yeah, I think that's also, it's not an irony, because I don't think there is such a thing. It's when your worlds are supposed to meet, they will meet. That's it.
Yeah, so there's no
coincidences, I don't believe. Everything happens just the way it's supposed to.
Yes. And so that we will give thanks to each other's teaching. It's been a real pleasure. It's a real pleasure. I love where this is taking me at the moment, just going, you know, like I've never done these kind of calls and recording them and sharing them before, but I think there's a lot of shared wisdom for everyone to enjoy. So I'm going to stop recording.
Yeah.
We'll say goodbye, and then I'll say another goodbye to you.
Very lovely to catch up.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.